Hey everybody, and welcome back to a Fat Fact series. I'm Ted, your host, and for this Fat Fact we're going to look at the role of Franklin Roosevelt as a negotiator. It's one of the more underrated, under acknowledged attributes of Franklin Roosevelt. He was a tremendous negotiator, someone who really was sly, cunning, and very determined. He yielded a lot of positive results. As far as his other roles, he was not a very strong military man. He took a hands-off approach for the military and the campaigns associated with World War II. And as far as the New Deal, while pushing for immediate relief and becoming, the greatest cheerleader for those New Deal programs, the ideas can rightly be seen as not belonging to him. The brain trust employed some of the very best minds of his day, and even though their legislation at times were at odds and conflicted with each other, it can largely be removed from the shoulders of Roosevelt. He was the point man in that he argued for them and he gained consensus for these legislation. He's rightly admired as a very good public speaker, for someone who had a true vision and develop a great expertise in the realm of public relations and in bringing people to his fold. Now as a negotiator, undoubtedly, in his dealings with Stalin, he's often seen as naive from the American point of view. But that was not the opinion Stalin had of Roosevelt. Stalin once said of Winston Churchill that if you turned your back on him, that Churchill will reach into your coat pockets and steal a kopeck. A kopeck is a very small sum of money. Is equivalent to let's say maybe a shilling or a pence or a penny, small pocket change. But Roosevelt only dips his hands in for much more, meaning that Roosevelt was sly, and that no matter what was being discussed, he would always go for the jugular. He would always go for the big prize, and you can see that in his negotiations, and particularly in the Yalta negotiations. Roosevelt, sly, calculating Roosevelt, at the Yalta Conference, was able to argue for much bigger gains. He was able to really press home what little advantages he had on paper to really great schemes. The Yalta Conference occurred in February of 1945. The German army in the west along the Rhine was still strong. It was complete. It was well supplied, well provisioned. The war there wasn't so much of a stalemate. It was just there were going to be cataclysmic battles, and you can expect the Germans to give just as much as they got. Whereas in the East, Stalin was already closing in on Berlin, and he had taken the precaution of sending the Soviet army into various Eastern European countries, various Eastern European states, bringing them into the Soviet fold, setting up satellite states that we would eventually recognize as the Iron Curtain countries, the communist bloc of Eastern Europe. In an effort to, in the Yalta Conference, really an effort to keep the wartime alliance intact, and was really set up to discuss German affairs, to keep Germany from being able to relaunch and start World War III against the powers. Roosevelt, Roosevelt did not have the authority to give away any territory held by United States forces, because he did not have any European territories to give away. He walked away from the table at Yalta with guarantees that, one, the Soviet Union would not deal with the brother communist or the sister communist regime or government of Mao Zedong in China, but would only deal with the democratic Chiang Kai-shek government. He was able to gain very large German spears for the United States, the Soviet Union, and France. France had been the British Roosevelt, Winston Churchill had wanted France to be given a German spear as well, and he was able to get those three very large spears. With the Soviets being confined to an eastern quadrant centered largely around Berlin, an area that they already had. He was also able to get the United States to get the promise of free elections for those eastern countries that Stalin now had control of. That was the best that he could get. But he was also able to get Soviet concrete promises from Stalin that the Soviet army, the Red Army, would join the United States in the fight against Japan. And Japan, quite the contrary to what everybody thought, Japan was the bigger fight, was the bigger threat to end the war than the Nazis had been. The Nazis came close to beating the Russians on a number of occasions, but they had largely failed to defeat the Russians. And it was clear that the Japanese were going to lose the war, but it was unclear how and on what terms would the Japanese end the war. They had offered stiff resistance to the U.S. at every turn on those little isolated islands, and it was looking as though the United States would need upwards of 1 million men, and the campaign to finally defeat the Japanese would be somewhere along 5 years in the making. So to walk away from his position of weakness militarily for February 1945, to walk away from the Yalta Conference with such great gains from the Soviet Union was a real testament to Roosevelt's negotiating abilities and its personal charms. That's our fast fact on Roosevelt the Negotiator. Hit like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you thought about this. And as always, I am Ted, and I will see you guys next time for another Fast Fact.